Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Tweak, Test, and Repeat. I'm Mr. Umer, and this will be our Mobile Quick Tips edition. The topic for today is, can your phone 4K? So I might trigger or get a lot of people pissed off when they hear your phone can't really do true 4K or 8K, but as they say, the devil's in the details. So I'm going to go directly into the details. That way we get a better understanding of what we're dealing with when they're talking about 4K resolutions or any other type of resolution. So we have what the industry calls basically the abbreviation for the display. You might hear 8K, 4K, 1440p, 1080p, and 720p. So I put together a table here. Basically, if you have, for example, 1080p, which is full high definition FHD, that's going to give you a display of 1920 by 1080. Now that's the width times the height in pixels. So when you're dealing with something like 4K, then that's a resolution of 3840 by 2160 pixels. And then when you bump up to 8K, that's 7680 by 4320. So basically, as you go from 720p up to 8K, the resolution in pixels is going up. So let's get that straight there. These are basically the standard resolutions. This doesn't include anything like widescreen ratios, and we'll probably get into that in another video. Now let's get into the real meat and potatoes of it. Can my mobile device actually display that kind of resolution? So I listed some typical mobile devices here, and certainly this is not all of them. There's going to be a wide array of mobile devices, tablets, displays, TVs. But in this edition, we're going to focus just on the mobile devices. So let's take an older model, Apple iPhone X. Screen display 2436 by 1125. Is that real 4K or no? 1080p. And if you go down the line there, let's go to the latest one, an iPhone or an Apple iPhone 12 Pro. You're probably going to shell a lot of money in there. Can it do 4K? Well, the screen display is 2532 by 1170. Nope. That's actually a pretty close to a 1080p screen. So when Apple says that it can do 4K, well, the display is not really 4K. So you're not really getting 4K. But we'll get into display resolution versus what's being rendered on the screen. Now the same is true for when you get into an Android phone. For example, we have some of the Samsung lineup here. I'm rocking a Samsung Note 10 Plus, so that's going to have a display resolution of 3040 by 1440. Now that's a 1440p resolution, slightly higher than a 1080p. And as you bump up to the newer models, let's pick a more fairly common model, a Samsung S20, 3200 by 1440. That's still a 1440p. You may get a little bit more width, but the height is pretty much the same in that respect. Can it 4K? Well, the display is not 4K, so technically it's a 1440p. So when you look at all these specs here, or if you were to look up your phone and see what the real screen display is, you'll probably find that most of them are not going to do 4K, and that's probably for a good reason. 4K is a higher resolution. We're not even getting into the refresh rate, but the more pixels, basically the more power consumption, the less your battery is going to last. So is it awesome to have a high 4K display with 60 hertz, 90 hertz, 120 hertz? Yeah, of course. I think there's going to be a spot where we'll get to that point in the future, maybe when the battery tech gets better, but this is basically where we're at right now, around 1080p and 1440p. Now, a lot of people will say, well, that's not what I was advertised, right? So if I go to my phone specs from Apple or for Samsung, it says it can do 4K or full 8K, right? What does that really mean? Well, obviously we see what's being displayed on physically on the phone. Then we have something what's basically rendered or streamed to your phone. So let's take a typical app. I have my my phone app here that's connected to my Note 10 Plus. So I'm going to open up YouTube. So let's launch that. And I'm going to pull up a video in my library that I've encoded in basically 4K, and it's going to have all these resolutions that besides 8K, I didn't really bump it up to that high. But if I take one of the videos that I have here, you'll notice that it's 5120 by 1440. And now that gets into widescreen, a 32:9 ratio. But basically, this is a 1440p ratio, right? Now, if I try to display that, I'm going to go ahead and pause that so you don't get too much echo there. You'll notice that I'm not going to get 1440p or 5120 by 1440p by that matter. At most, if I were to rotate my screen, then for mine I could probably get 3040 by 1440, and we'll go later on and verify that. But what do they mean by 4K, 8K? Well, that's more the streaming or the resolution quality. So the quality you get streamed to your phone is almost always not going to match what your display can actually output. So if we look at this YouTube video here, which I rendered in 4K HDR, we tap on the settings here, we'll see that the quality is listed, right? And it may even have some lower quality that I didn't even list here. But this is basically the streaming quality or how the video was encoded, right? 144p, that's probably going to be one of the lowest that you'll find on YouTube, and that's basically going to have a more pixelated output on your display. As you move your way up all the way to 4K, which your phone will most likely try to automatically detect based on your Wi-Fi or your mobile connectivity. On mine, I'm connected to Wi-Fi, so it defaulted to an auto 4K, right? If I try to display that here, then you'll notice if I skip through the video, you'll get an output, right? It's kind of small to see on the screen, and obviously I'm casting this here. You won't see the full thing, but if you try it on your phone, or if I try this on my phone, then in actuality, my display can do 1440p, but I'm rendering in 4K, or I'm streaming the video in 4K. So you're still gonna get a marginally better output on here when you're displaying it. For example, even though my screen is 1440p and the quality was set to 144, it's going to be pixelated because what you're rendering or streaming to your screen is going to be at a lower quality, right? And that's going to be dependent on maybe your signal or your Wi-Fi, right? Obviously, if you have a good clean signal and fast speed, you're going to be able to stream 4K. If you have 5G, even better, maybe 8K is in your horizon. So I hate to burst anyone's bubble, but just because your phone says it can do 4 or 8K doesn't mean in reality that it's doing it, because I can't physically make a 4K resolution, which is 3840 by 2160, actually output on a screen that's basically the hardware can only output 3040 by 1440, right? That's just bending reality in there. You might be able to do some tricks where you miniaturize it, but the pixels are still going to be the same, right? Even if you try to shrink what my screen is displaying to make it be like basically a what NVIDIA does. They do what's called DSR, right? So basically trying to simulate what your screen will look like by reducing the what the objects look like in there to see, okay, well, if I have a 1440p and I try to output 4K, if I shrink everything to 4K, that's what it would really look like. But my monitor is not really 4K, and the same would apply to the phone. So, well, that's it. That's all we have for today for mobile quick tips. I hope I've basically educated folks here. A lot of these details get lost. You may see the specs on the website, and I'll go ahead and post some links to some of these phones or some links to that talk about resolution. But in reality, your phone can't really 4K. it can render 4K or stream 4K to your phone, but what you're actually outputting on your screen is not 4K. So if you really want to know what your screen can do, then you're going to have to check your manufacturer's specifications. So if you like this video, go ahead and like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.